Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shattering the Silence.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Amy. And this is episode 5. So today we're going to be talking about recruitment. We are at the drop in center today going live. We don't have anybody in here right now, but you might hear noise if somebody comes to the door. So we might have to pause and we'll jump right back on.
Pause it.
All right, we're back. So that was the first
Interruption.
yeah, not interruption. It was the first
Pause.
yes, first pause. All right, so today we're talking about recruiting. And so this is something in human trafficking where a trafficker sort of identifies who their next victim is going to be. So the technical definition of recruiting is enlisting a new person or a victim, or it's the act of locating a new person or a victim. And so it looks very unique for every individual, for every victim or survivor of human trafficking. So we just want to dig in a little bit into that and then have some conversation around it. So recruiting can look a lot different for different types of trafficking, whether it's labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and even with sex trafficking, there's different like MOs of traffickers. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody may be recruited like we've talked about in past podcasts, where it's less likely that a victim is kidnapped, chains, but that does happen. So anywhere from 4 to 9% of trafficking victims have encountered their trafficker in that manner. So recruiting might look like kidnapping or something like that, but most commonly it is a trafficker noticing somebody's vulnerability and then kind of watching
Yeah.
them and studying and lurking and praying and just waiting for the right opportune moment to introduce themselves. So there are 5 phases of trafficking that have been identified. Well, there's 4, but then Sidewalk Soldiers years ago, when we started our education piece, added this 5th one. So the first one is recruiting. The next one is the victim is groomed. Then they are go through a phase of coercion or manipulation, and then they're exploited. After the exploitation, it's a human life, so something happens, whether that is, they escape, they end up in jail, somehow they break away from that trafficking, and sometimes, sadly, that is death, disease. It can look many different ways. So we're going to explore each of these phases throughout different podcasts. Today, we're talking about the recruiting. So, recruiting can happen with multiple people. My trafficker, it was a network, and he actually paid women that he had trafficked in the past through drugs or through money to recruit other victims. So, I was recruited by a young lady that I was using drugs with at the time. So, ultimately, I was recruited because of, of several reasons. So, I had some past trauma. I had some mental health and self esteem issues. And then I was kind of at a point in my life where I had a drug addiction that was budding and beginning to spiral out of control. So I was just at a really low point in my life. And these traffickers or recruiters, they will take note of that. So this young lady that I was using with was kind of a scout that hung out at different trap houses, hotels, places where people were using drugs. And then she would make the introduction to the guy that ultimately trafficked me. And it was at a point where I was really starting to be scared by my addiction. My loss of control with the drug was I was losing stuff. I was selling stuff. I had to, move back in with my parents. Just a really low point. I was making up excuses for being gone and leaving my kids with my parents. I was already at a point where I had lost a job. So I kind of fell into a depression after the loss of a job. And then I ended up on prescription drugs. And then that wasn't enough. So it never was enough. I was just like trying to feed my flesh. And I manipulated my doctor to get more drugs. And then I turned to street drugs. And then I was introduced to crack cocaine. And so I was at a point where I was in between binges, where I was trying to still like control it a little bit. Like I would go
Mm-hmm.
out on the weekend and do it, but every time I was just like more at a loss of control. So I was at
Right.
this point where I really didn't care. I was hopeless. I was depressed. And this young lady seemed somebody like when you're using drugs, you put yourself in situations and around people that are dangerous. At points in early addiction, I always thought nobody can get me any other way because I've been got every possible way. And because people are trying to look out for themselves and feed their own addictions, right? So there's a lot of people that'll buddy up to you and
Mm-hmm.
then stab you in the back. And so this young lady, I had hung out with her for a few days. She seemed really cool. She brought a good energy to the
Right.
room, and she was just fun to be around. And so she said, like, what you need to stop doing to make my unemployment checks that I was on at the time, what you need to do. We're gonna have to pause for just a second.
It's fun.
All right, sorry about the pause. So, going back to what we were saying, she was just a lot of fun, and she came at me like, "Well, you're using up all your money." I was on unemployment at the time. I would spend like my entire check and just a little bit on
Mm-hmm.
dope, and then have nothing left to pay bills. And I was just more at in shock of my inability after all these years of like being able to budget and pay bills because I'd never experienced anything quite like the addiction I had to crack. And so she was saying, you need to stop $20 yourself to death. Let's get together this amount. I will introduce you to my dude, which back in the day, like everybody played middleman because they were trying to earn a little bit off of it. And so nobody really took you straight to the source. So that should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. So she told me about this guy that he was wonderful and all these things, and he would hook us up, and he did the first time. And so she introduced me to him. He gave me his phone number. I didn't know at the time that I was being recruited to be trafficked. So she was somebody that had been trafficked by him at another point, and after so many years in the game, she had came up with some incurable diseases. Like her addiction was a little bit wild, and so how she earned her money was selling dope for him and introducing women to him. So what I learned in hindsight was that I was introduced to my trafficker for a 50 piece of crack, and he would love to throw that in my face. 9 months later, so he groomed me, and I thought he was Romeo and he was my boyfriend before the exploitation really happened. But at the point where the exploitation began to happen, there was a lot of building up, breaking down, a lot of physical violence, and he liked to use psychological violence afterwards. So he liked to really throw things in my face. So after beatings, he would love to throw in my face the fact that he paid for me, that I was a cheap hoe. I didn't even cost him that much. I was a cheap hoe that he gave a 50 piece of crack for me, which probably cost him, $10 it cost. So that's a little bit about like how I was recruited. And from the point that I met him, it was no shackles and chains. It was really up to him to gain my trust and gain my rapport. And he did that in the manner that I fell head over heels in love with him. He treated me like nobody else had. He groomed me for 9 months and put a lot of intent and thought and money. Like I'm somebody that you can pretty much tell what I'm thinking by my face. I could never imagine playing a role like that for 9 months. So, and he was able to because of my addiction, because I was so high all the time that I was like easily impressionable. Sometimes I was
Mm-hmm.
really out of touch with reality. And he pretty much opened up access to this drug supply. So it took me from where I was starting to spiral out of control to in no time, within a matter of 9 months, I had a $400 a day habit. Um, and he hooked me in that manner. So it was between playing Romeo and me falling in love and developing these soul ties with him. Um, to also him just like catalyzing my addiction to where it was
Yeah.
so out of control. So that's how I was recruited. Do you want to share anything about how you were recruited?
So mine's a little different. So like I didn't know, and like as you're sharing, like I'm like wow, right? So with me, I didn't know I was being recruited. I didn't even know that I was being trafficked. Um, Sorry if I get emotional. Uh, there was a few different people, right? Since I've been able to look back on my past, and it was like they preyed on my vulnerability. They preyed on my addiction and me being homeless. And I didn't even realize they were making money off of me. It didn't even register with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like multiple people. It wasn't just one with me.
Yeah.
And it was women pretending like they were my friend and they were looking out for me,
Mm-hmm.
that would leave me at random guys' houses. It was men pretending that they were looking out for me and trying to help me find a warm place to stay. Um, and sometimes it would be them, or they would leave me at random people's houses. One in particular guy, as you're talking, it just brought it to light. It makes sense. He had a lot of women always around, um, and I met him. He hit me up on Messenger, right? Like, hey, you want to come over? Don't know how he found out about me. Don't know how he knew me. I was in the rain. I remember this day like yesterday. I was in the rain. I was sitting at a park. I had nowhere to go, and this guy hit me up, and he's like, "Do you party?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you want to come over?" Sure. I had heard about him, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, how did you hear about me? Um, and he was so sweet. He was so kind, um, and he fed my drug habit, just like you just said. Like my habit went from being, and I had just started shooting at this point. Like I hadn't been
Mm-hmm.
shooting meth. My drug of choice was meth, and I hadn't been shooting it very long. Um, and I went over there, and my habit went, pew, and it's like he groomed me. Um, he treated me well, and then like just like that, it turned off.
Mm-hmm.
I was left on the street with this huge habit.
And
And
that's part of the breakdown, like the manipulation and
yeah, and
coercion, and it's wicked.
it's like he built this up there just for for me to be dependent on him, and it went from me living with him to me coming over when he needed me to run something for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or he wanted to sleep with me, and then it was more like I was his runner.
Yeah.
Um, and like, and the sick part about it is when I first got clean, like he's in prison, and when I first got clean, like I kept talking to him, sending him money, like because
Yeah.
like he took care of me. Um, he was good to me, so good to me, but like, was he?
No. And that's another thing is that our trafficker, the guy that trafficked me, always did when women got arrested, especially if it was an arrest that was like loitering to engage or prostitution or drugs, when it was his drugs, he kept money on their books. He followed up with them. And even when the women got sober and got out of the life and stuff, he would keep up with them and keep tabs on them and just occasionally check in because he would even, I've heard the words come out of his mouth, he would say, when they relapse or when they come back out, they know who they're coming home to daddy. And
Yeah,
so that's not an uncommon thing. They take care of it. And I've even heard him use the words, it's an investment. So I will keep money on their books while they're there because that ensures they're not going to speak on me
yeah. Like I just
and that they're
remember
coming back
so
to
many
me.
times like being at random people's houses throughout my addiction, and like I remember one in particular time, like, you're mine for tonight. You know, you were left here for a reason. You know what I mean? And that's not clicking. I'm like, thinking, oh, and like, and not wanting to do things, but like because of the abuse that I've been through, my whole life, like just giving in.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather not put up a fight.
Yeah. And so that's another thing is like prior abuse can be something that grooms and conditions
Hmm.
us to be recruited. I've heard, so we do a survivor support group, and I'm not going to tell like anybody's stories, but I'm sorry, recruiting can look very different to different people. I know personally two or three people that were recruited because they were knocked out in their sleep or they were kidnapped. They were drugged. Those are horrible stories, but typically what recruiting looks like is somebody that knows you and knows you have a vulnerability that they can exploit. They're going to introduce themselves to you, and they're going to introduce themselves in a way that they're going to meet an opportunity, or they're going to help or assist you. So people that are unhoused are a very vulnerable population, because the thing is, especially when it comes to youth, runaway youth, people that are phased out of the foster system, they'll open their home. You can come stay here. Look, I've got all these other, young men and women that I
Hmm.
allow stay here. They call me dad in the streets. They call me mama in the streets, whatever that might look like. But one other piece of that is the substance use disorder. It really is something that mental
I
health.
feel like that's one
Um,
of the big things that a lot of traffickers prey on, especially with the ones that are um, homeless,
yeah.
because most people that are homeless are addicted to drugs, and they'll prey on that. Like, I got a place to stay, and
Mm-hmm.
I will take care of you if you get sick. Da, 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 da. That was the thing. There was times I remember, like I said, my drug of choice was meth.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to pass out and
Yeah.
after doing a shot
Yeah.
wasn't normal, and then to wake
But
up.
you have those, I stayed up for 7 days, now I'm going to sleep hardcore for two, and you don't know what's happening to you when you're sleeping
Yeah,
or where you
so
wake up.
that's what I'm saying. Like, and they're like, um, and the thing is like, because of being on the drugs, it's hard for people to believe you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even after you've gotten clean and you share some things, because it's like, it sounds crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they make you think you're crazy
Hmm.
too. At times they'll say, oh, you need to lay off those drugs. And that's
Yeah.
what it would always be. The two things that my trafficker used against me a lot was, well, you're complicit. You're part of this. So he made me feel like I was equally like breaking the law, that I was
Hmm.
willing, because that psychological courage. And you actually, and we're going to talk about that in two podcasts from now, but you do take on an identity where you feel like you're a willing participant at one point. And if not, I was crazy. I was crazy because I'm doing too many drugs. I stayed up too long. And so they constantly gaslight you in other ways.
Yeah.
Recruitment for labor trafficking can look a lot different too. Sometimes a lot of recruitment happens online, sex trafficking too. Um, they might go on websites, so like escort websites, where there might be independent people that are just on there for the purpose of doing sex work, but they're always approaching you like it's an opportunity. Like, you could make more money here, come to this escort agency. And sometimes they'll even make it look like it is a legal contract for illegal acts like sex work. But like, hey, you come here, we're going to give you, we're going to keep 20-30% because it's a commission. And so they'll present it like that. And it's really not. The other thing is, and we'll go into this a little more with the grooming, because I would like to use the visual of Maslow's hierarchy of needs too. You can be anywhere on those rungs, but traffickers are really going to look for people that need their basic needs met, that need security.
Hmm.
The next rung up is love and acceptance. And so I was looking for that too. But there are people that are esteemed, or, they might approach them like it is a great opportunity, modeling, pornography, and they think they're getting into something like, we're going to make you more money to get you through college, and they'll present it like it is a great opportunity. And there's this
Hmm.
story of, so I'm an Ending the Games training facilitator, and the young lady is a survivor that put together that curriculum. And her story was very much that she was in college, she was doing her thing, she was beautiful, still is, very esteemed person. She had self esteem, she had friends, but she was approached by somebody that just noticed and played up to the, oh, you're so beautiful. I can get you a modeling contract. Here's that. And so it was going to take her from a point of self esteem to actually self actualization. So doing more for her than she could do for herself. And then before she knew it, the modeling turned to pornography, turned to trafficking, and she was trapped in a life um, that she couldn't get out of, and trafficked and exploited. So trafficking can look many different ways. We hope that this helped put a face on what trafficking looks like. It can be a network, it can be one person. The person that recruited you may not be the same person that is exploiting you. When it's in the phase of a network, it might be multiple people that have recruited you.
Mm-hmm.
You may have multiple traffickers in your lifetime, but recruitment is a very individualized thing. But the bottom line with it is they're looking for somebody in a moment of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Even in the cases when it's kidnapping or chains or whatever, that person was vulnerable in the moment and caught off guard. So they're looking for a vulnerability, and so they identify who their next victim is, and then it goes into the grooming phase, which we will talk about in episode 6 of Shattering the Silence. So you have the wonderful Sarah
And the
and
wonderful Amy.
Amy, and we have a couple little announcements on what we've got going on at Sidewalk Soldiers right now. So we still have the sweatshirts and t-shirts for sale. It is $20 for a sweatshirt and $10 for a t-shirt, I believe. We're doing $10 for the t-shirts and $20 for the sweatshirts. They say Sidewalk Soldiers on the front, and then it has our logo and Hope, Help, and Healing on the back. Get a hold of us if you're interested in one.
They're very comfy.
March 8th, we have the SOAP Project. And so that is where we work locally with other trafficking organizations and the SOAP Project to bring just a day of awareness around human trafficking. And then we take out makeup wipes and soap bars that are labeled with the human trafficking hotline and take them to hotels, give the hotels a little bit of education on human trafficking. And then we leave those with the staff so that they might put them in the rooms of people they suspect are being trafficked. So March 8th, if you want to sign up on for that, look at our TikTok, our Facebook, or our Instagram, and there should be every few days we post about it, and there's links in the post, and you can sign up through Eventbrite. And then
The
finally, I'm going to let you do this one.
I don't remember the name of
Liber-
it. The Liberator Award.
Liberator Award for 2025.
Yes, so we were nominated. I thought it was for 2024.
It is for 2024, but it's the 2025 Liberator Awards. Yeah.
You can go on our Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and we have posts on there where you can go and you can vote for us. I do believe one of our board members.
Yeah, our board member Kalila Riga is also a nominee for Survivor of the Year. So if you love what Sidewalk Soldiers is doing and want to support us and our board member, you can go cast your votes, and then the finalists will be determined later in February. Any final words, Sarah?
Live on purpose because you were made on purpose for a purpose.
Thank you, Jesus.
And if you're out there and you think that there's no way out, there's two people sitting here as proof that you can survive and you can get out, and you are loved by the Most High God, and He can heal and take away anything.
And change your life.
And change your life around.
Yep. Amen. So we'll see you at the next episode
Of Shattering the
Peace.
Silence.
God bless.